Welcome, students, staff, guests from the community, and especially our veterans who are joining us for this Veterans Day program. Throughout this nation's history, America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard have bravely answered the call to defend our freedom, to aid our friends, our allies, and to turn back aggressors. We can never fully repay our debt of gratitude to the more than 650,000 American service members who died in battle or the 1.4 million who were wounded. We can, however, recognize and thank the 25 million veterans still living today as we honor their patriotic service to our country. Please join me in a round of applause as we recognize all those who have answered the call to serve our great country. At this time, would everybody please rise for the presentation of the colors by VFW Post 7929 and American Legion Post 169, and the Pledge of Allegiance led by AHS Senior Student Council President Sophia Danielson.
Stand. Present arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, Ms. Kaitlyn Peterson, High School Student Council Vice President, will now read the origins of Veterans Day.
The origins of Veterans Day. In 1921, An unknown World War I American soldier was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. This site, on a hillside overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington, D.C., became the focal point of reverence for America's veterans. Similar ceremonies occurred earlier in England and France, where an unknown soldier was buried in each nation's highest place of honor. These memorial gestures all took place on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I fighting at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The day became known as Armistice Day. Armistice Day officially received its name in America in 1926 through a congressional resolution. It became a national holiday 12 years later by similar congressional action. It was hoped that World War I would be the war to end all wars, but as we know, it wasn't. The first celebration using the term Veterans Day occurred in Birmingham, Alabama, in 1947, just years after World War II ended. The event was held on November 11th, then designated Armistice Day. In 1954, Congress passed the bill that President Eisenhower signed proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day. The focal point for official national ceremonies for Veterans Day continues to be the memorial amphitheater built around the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery. At 11 a.m. on November 11th, a combined color guard representing all military services executes present arms at the tomb. The nation's tribute to its war dead is symbolized by the laying of a presidential wreath and the playing of taps at Arlington National Cemetery. On this day, Veterans Day, we ask that you take the time to reflect and think about the brave men and women who have bravely served our country. Thank you.
At this time, we'll have our first musical selection by the AHS Choir under the direction of Mrs. Carrie Moskell with God Bless the USA. Choir members, you may come forward. Thank you, choir, for that wonderful piece. That was great. You guys loved it, didn't you? Yeah. Well, I am beyond honored to introduce our distinguished speaker today. In talking to him ahead of time, he made it clear he wanted me to introduce him as Dan, a guy who just came from a small town and just wanted to fly. Well, I'm sorry, Dan, I got a few more paragraphs than that to talk about you right now. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel J. Schone. Dan and his family were our next door neighbors as we grew up as kids. Although we were 6 years apart, we had many interests in common, and it was very much like I had another brother. We built snow forts, went fishing, played hours of catch with a baseball and a football, even tipped over a canoe duck hunting one day. Remember that, Dan? I'm sure I yelled at Dan, told him it was his fault, but I'm sure it was my fault. Dan was a very motivated person, always up for a new challenge or experience. Sometimes early in life, he made a decision that he was going to live life to the fullest and experience as much as possible, and that's what he has done. Lieutenant Colonel Schone is a very humble man, and certainly doesn't want me to read the rest of this, but I'm quite proud of him, and I need to. Lieutenant Colonel Schone, a class of 2000 graduate of Amery High School, entered the Air Force in 2004 after graduating from the University of Minnesota Duluth. Currently, he is the Deputy Commander of the 92nd Operations Group working out of Fairchild Air Force Base in the state of Washington, with over 700 active duty airmen under his control. His career includes operational flying assignments in multiple types of aircrafts. Lieutenant Colonel Schone is a senior pilot with over 4,000 flight hours and over 1,400 combat hours, where he has been awarded over 15 different service awards and decorations. He is the Air Force's only B-29 Super Fortress Warbird pilot. He has been active in the Aviation Inspiration Mentor Program for a number of years as well. Lieutenant Colonel Schone is married to his wonderful wife, Dr. Michaela Schone, and together they have two daughters, Frankie and Franny. In addition, Dan is uncle to AHS senior Carter Nielsen. Please join me in welcoming AHS Class of 2000 graduate, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel J. Schone. Sorry, brother.
Wow. What a program. Band, choir, Amery, you know what? You do it right. Members of the community, administration, staff, faculty, students, family and friends, and most importantly, veterans, good morning. It sure is great to be back in Amery. It's even better to see so many familiar faces. Hard to believe 23 years ago that I was flying Cessnas at the Amery Municipal Airport and sitting in the same bleachers that you're sitting in right now. I bring this up for one reason, and one reason only, and it's to make your principal feel old. Josh, thanks for the invite. Mr. Gould, as he's called here. Appreciate the gracious introduction, unnecessary. It's truly an honor to be here today. I'd like to start with a quick poll. If you could please raise your hand if you know someone who has served or is currently serving in the military, and keep them up real quick. If everybody take a quick moment to look around. Every hand raised is the reason that we're here today. Thank you. I'd like to take a few minutes to thank those who have served our country to ensure liberty for the rest of us. Students, you should be happy. I got you out of class for a while. I just asked one thing, that you listen for about 8 minutes. That's all I've got, all right? In this gymnasium right now, we have the honor of having veterans from World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, and numerous other conflicts around the world. To the veterans here today, I'm simply humbled to be in your presence. The sacrifices endured by you and your families do not go unnoticed. America is forever indebted to you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for helping pave and preserve our way of life. Being a veteran is a lot like being on a sports team or in a club And to be honest, it's actually a lot like being an Amery warrior. Generations of veterans are brought together through an invisible bond. This bond isn't driven by a specific branch of service, or the conflicts they fought in, or by the decorations on their chest. This special bond is driven by words. Words that every veteran repeats when they raise their right hand and take an oath. That they take this obligation freely of serving their nation, without any mental reservation. They vow to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And here's the best part. What most people really don't realize is that they took that oath for you. They didn't take it for a president, a king, a queen, or even a country for that matter. They took it for an idea based on the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Students, don't start rolling your eyes. I'm not here to teach history, but this is fundamental to why we gather today. The idea is based off the very principles found in our Declaration of Independence, that all human beings are created equal, that the true power of government comes from the people. From the Revolutionary War to Pearl Harbor to 9/11 to today, every generation has been challenged. Someone knows in this room right now is risking their life so we can gather here today. Whether it's Russian aggression, Chinese competition, foreign or domestic terrorism, or a global pandemic, America is hard at work defeating the threats that challenge our way of life. Unlike conflicts we have faced over the last 20 years, today's era of strategic competition adds a layer of complexity. Every citizen must do their part to deny our adversaries the ability to disrupt the values we hold so dear. We must ensure our common interests sew us together. We cannot afford to let our differences unravel the threads of our great democracy. Our veterans have fought too hard preserving the liberties we all share. As we commemorate veterans today, we must never forget those who have given the ultimate sacrifice defending our great nation. I'll never forget the night I was flying a routine combat mission and was abruptly retasked deep in the mountains of Afghanistan. Not knowing the mission at the time, I had no idea this experience would resonate with me so many years later. On August 6, 2011, a Chinook helicopter was shot down by the Taliban. Anytime an aircraft is shot down, it's a big deal. This was different, and we knew it. Among the fallen were 25 of our very own elite Navy SEALs. My job was to bring them home. To bring them home to the loved ones that never had a chance to say goodbye. I'll tell you what, if I'd ever questioned my purpose in the world before, it sure was apparent that night. I'm definitely not here to tell war stories, and by no means am I a warmonger. To be blatantly honest, I hate war. All veterans have a general distaste for war. Just ask them. Over the past 20 years, the physical and mental burdens on veterans has risen sharply, with unfortunate similarities to the Vietnam era. Though war is sometimes necessary, we must also realize the cost of war is not only monetary. The true cost of war lingers in the hearts and minds of our veterans for decades to follow. By now, you're probably asking yourself, why do people serve in the military? Why would they do that? The answer is quite simple. Veterans know firsthand what it takes to secure the unalienable rights that are so easily taken for granted. Veterans know what it's like to stand for something bigger than themselves. And veterans learn to cherish what life has to offer. You notice the little things, Morning fog rising above a calm river that Josh and I tipped the canoe over in duck hunting. Simple sounds in nature, the 3 distinct colors on an American flag. Life's day-to-day problems really don't hold much value because you realize they're not worth worrying about. You appreciate time with family and friends because you realize it's not guaranteed. Every time I come back to Amery, I beam with pride and appreciation for this community. Growing up in Amery provided me an opportunity to pursue a dream. You are all in my thoughts, no matter where I am in the world. This profession has provided me an opportunity to see wonders, to lead great teams, and to touch down in 60 countries around the world. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because it's common among veterans. It's what we have chosen to do in life, and we wouldn't change a thing. As I close, I would like to challenge each of you. Students, I challenge you to find a way to turn your passion into purposeful service. To those who didn't raise their hand at the beginning, to those who unfortunately do not know a veteran, I challenge you to find a veteran, hear their story. I think you'll be amazed. Not everyone. I ask you to remember the veterans in this community, to thank them for preserving the freedoms that we rely on each and every day. Please realize our American way of life is a privilege, and it is not guaranteed. God bless this school, this awesome community, and this great nation. Thank you.
Now our Amery Band, directed by Mr. Lucas West, will play a selection entitled Marches of the Armed Forces. We will announce the branches as he's playing them as your song is played, and we would ask all military to please stand for your song when it comes up. United States Marine Corps. United States Army. The United States Coast Guard. The United States Air Force. The United States Navy. We ask everyone to please now rise for the duration of our program. The AHS band will lead us in the Star-Spangled Banner, followed by the silence to the fallen comrades in arms, and then the playing of taps by Tia Lochner before retiring the colors.
Ladies and gentlemen, before me are the boots, rifle, helmet, and dog tags. This is the symbol of a fallen church, who has answered his country's call. This honor guard, these veterans, made up of his comrades in arms. Members of the Navy, the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, Coast Guard, all serve. Doesn't matter if it's reserve or active duty. This is called a field cross. This is placed when we find a fallen veteran. On guard and salute. Rifle squad, prepare to fire. Ready, aim, fire. Aim, fire. Aim, fire. Rifle squad, return. Order, arms. Color guard, retrieve the colors. Fall in. Full face, forward, march. That's left, left, right over, right, left, 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 right over, right, left, 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 right over, right, left, 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 right, forward, right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this day, Veterans Day. Be sure to thank those who have sacrificed for our country. Guests, you are dismissed at this time. Families of veterans, you're welcome to join us for breakfast. It'll be in a room just over on the side. Students, we ask that you please wait until our guests are out and then find the easiest exit out. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.